Welcome back to the REI Agent. We are here with Kobe Zinn. Kobe, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. I'm always happy to, share as much value as I can for any agents that are out there. And just excited to be on the show today and see what we can talk about.
Yeah, Kobe. So you are actively recruiting agents, and tell me a little bit more about like who you are and what you do in real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that. So when I started in real estate, it was back in 2020. Got my real estate license about 2 months before the January 1st of 2020. And got started basically wanting to work with real estate investors. I wanted to be an investor myself, actually. That's really the whole reason why I got into real estate in the first place, was because I had picked up the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it was the first time I'd ever heard of the term passive income. I always knew I wanted to do something on my own, but I didn't really understand the concept. I mean, when I read it, it just became increasingly obvious and simple to understand. But passive income, that was the first time I ever kind of heard about it. So got my real estate license, wanted to get linked up with a team and the group of investors, and that's exactly what I did. For the first 2-3 months of January in 2020, I was working directly, very actively with an investor actually here. So I'm based in Houston, Texas. He was local to me as well. And I did a lot of essentially like cold calling on his behalf. So he was a licensed real estate agent, but he was also a cash buyer investor. So basically, we're talking to homeowners, direct marketing to homeowners, and just seeing how we can help them out, right? Whether if it's going to be, a cash buyer solution, the traditional investor way, or is it going to be, do they prefer listing it on the MLS, listing it as a traditional retail sales, sales project, right? So we're talking about that. Did that for about 2-3 months, and then, unfortunately or fortunately, I guess some people might think of it depending on what happened, COVID hit, right? So COVID hit at that time, and we are just shut down for, who knew how long, right? We didn't know what was going to happen at the time. We didn't know how long that was going to last, what the regulations were. And then that's when I started to look into some other avenues in real estate, and started to grow a team, build a team of real estate agents. We have a good real estate model that allows us to be able to do this with less liability, less overhead. But pretty much that's when I was able to get started in that. And I just started talking to, at the time, a lot of agents who were similar to myself, who was getting their real estate license, who was looking for an investor-focused team, an investor-focused group. I felt like we could provide that as a value to a lot of these agents getting started. And my first year, I was able to build a team of about 6 agents, even though I've never done any real estate sales myself, don't really have any transactions under my real estate license. And then from there, it just kept growing. We started building a website, my partner and I, and we did a lot of search engine optimization, SEO, which basically means that we built a website that was searchable, able to be found on Google. And within our second year, we were able to turn 6 agents into about 30 agents by the end of the second year. And currently, right now, we're getting close to about 80 agents in our team, and have been focused a lot on doing that, growing a team of agents. I know it was a little bit of a unique kind of background compared to maybe some of the more traditional real estate agents and team leaders that are out there, but that's kind of where we started, where we're going, and kind of where we're at now.
Kobe, I wanted to rewind real quick to that. I think you off air, you had mentioned it kind of, or described it kind of like a inside sales agent for that off market, the activity with that agent. What did you see as your like success rate? Like, whether that was an active investment versus, a listing, like, did you have to call about 100 people for one, or what did that look like?
Yeah, you actually, that's pretty accurate what you just said, about 100. I think for us it was around 80 to 100, depending on the day, and depending on kind of how many people are actually picking up. But about 80 to 100 calls a day, and that would get maybe 1 or 2 appointments. So that was the success rate that we had. And we came from a little bit of a different approach. So I know there's a lot of agents who just do agents, right? Who they don't invest, or maybe they don't even work with investors. And there's a lot of investors who just do investing. They don't have a real estate agent's license. They don't do that side of things. But because we were able to do both, that actually helped us a lot with our conversation when we approach sellers directly, because now we can come from more of a consultative approach rather than, hey, this is what we do. Do you want to do it? It was more, we see you have this issue, how can we come in, and what can we do to help you, right? These are some of the things that we can do. How do you think we can best serve you as a potential real estate solution. But yeah, around 80 to 100 calls. We'll get about 1 or 2 appointments. And, for me, just starting out cold calling, I will say if there's any agents out there who are starting to cold call or starting to make phone calls, or you're an investor or a wholesaler doing the same things, expect a lot more people who just don't pick up, and expect a lot more messages that you have to leave rather than just getting straight up rejected on an answered phone call. That's one little tip I would have to leave with anybody starting out and doing this.
As in, like, your people might be expecting that they're going to like get cursed and chewed out on and hung up on, but in reality, it's mostly people not answering the phone. And okay, cool. I mean, that's encouraging. I think it really, cold calling, I think really takes a certain personality type. I think it's certainly, I mean, it's a proven method, and I'm sure everybody can do it in theory, right? But I think like to really see success long term in that, you have to probably have a thick skin, be okay with a lot of rejection, right? I mean, there's going to be people that do answer, and there are going to be people that are not happy about it. I'm sure. But yeah, to like just kind of see it as a numbers game and to pursue and keep going. The list that you were calling from, now this was all this was like targeted distressed or targeted for more investing stuff, right? It wasn't like a general farming a neighborhood kind of thing, right?
No, yes, it was distressed, distressed seller. So when we first started, it was actually provided by a vendor or a mortgage company, which was basically people who are looking for a refinance, right?
Okay.
We're targeting people who are looking for a refinance in the beginning. And then later on, within a few weeks, we started adding on actually for sale by owners and expired listings. So as an investor, I know a lot of times those might not be some things that you're looking for, but because we could do both, we come in with a different approach. Right. A lot of times agents, right, they'll call it expired listing. They'll just go, I'm another agent. When we come in, it's different because we'll say, we're a real estate solutions company. These are some of the things that we can do. I see that you have, had your house that was listed for sale. It looks like you're no longer interested in selling your home now. Right. And that starts the conversation with that seller, with that expired listing seller. So those are the lists that we're calling mostly distressed, but also some creative ways to kind of get into the conversation. Mostly just because we do things, it was done a little bit differently for us.
Well, no, I love it. And I think it is there are definitely different avenues that you can go if you do kind of wear both hats, do kind of walk on like both the investor and the real estate agent side. And you're 100% right. I mean, you have kind of like all the tools in theory available for people that you can really help them solve their solution based on what their current needs are. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about, you mentioned like, you described yourself as a real estate solutions company. I mean, what other kind of approaches or how did you kind of start those conversations with the people who actually did answer and talk to you?
Right. Yeah. So it really just depended on who we were calling, right? For expired listings, that was exactly what we would say. Sure. We see that, your house was for sale, however long ago, and it looks like now you guys are no longer interested in selling your home, right? And a lot of times they'll just say, if they're actually not interested, they'll just say, yeah, we're not trying to sell anymore. And then that was that, right? That was kind of the conversation. And then, and then we put them into a follow-up, into a drip for later on. But most of the people who answered who are expired, they will say, no, we're still looking to sell. It's just, this is what happened. This is what happened to the previous agent. And here's where we're at. And then that's when we can come in and say, okay, well, if you're looking to sell, we help, people just like yourself. We're a real estate company, so we can come in and with a cash offer if that's what you want. But also we are licensed as well, and this is what we do. And just basically, we wanted to know a little bit more about what went wrong last time. What was the issue last time that you weren't able to get your house sold successfully, right? And they would tell us. So it then becomes more of a consultation on the phone rather than trying to say like, all right, this is what you need to do now. This is, when can we come into your house? Like, when can we come for an appointment? Right. It was less of that. Right. And then we will get more information as they started opening up more to us. So that was mostly what we're trying to do. We're trying to see how we can come in, how we can help. There's a good book out there called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I'm sure some agents have heard of this already, but we use a lot of the speech patterns and tactics that were talked about in that book, right? So for context, this book was written by former FBI negotiator, and he shares a lot of concepts about how we can communicate better in negotiations and sales, right? We're thinking less of the other party as somebody we need to try to talk down, or we need to try to convince or persuade, but trying to figure out what the situation is and how we can come together to solve this problem, right? So there's a lot of how questions, a lot of what questions, a lot of we talked about it looks like, it seems like, so us trying to see what their situation is and then pointing it out to them just to confirm it or have them not confirm it, right, for us. And then that's where we start these conversations, right? And then the same thing it comes to when we're leaving messages as well. We'll talk about what we do, we'll point out a situation or an issue that we noticed, right, with their current real estate situation, whether if they're a distressed seller or if they're for sale by owner or expired. And then a lot of times we will get callbacks. A lot of times we'll get text backs as well. So that's really how we would approach people, less so from a, this is what we need to do, and more so from a, here's what we see the problem is, let's confirm this is the issue, and then, how can we move forward from here?
Yeah, I love it. I think sometimes agents that don't understand the investing side of this real estate world, they sometimes see it as predatory. Because there are some, there are bad actors, and there are things that like happen that are probably, are a little predatory. And I think it's, it's kind of bad actors on both sides, right? It could be possible either way. But I think if your experience from being able to offer all the services basically to a distressed owner could really kind of illuminate to people that it's not necessarily like there's just different solutions for different problems. And walk us through like a distressed call real quick, if you don't mind, before we move on. So if you got a lead for a distressed person, how much information do you know going in, like what their motivation is, that kind of thing? And then when you're talking to them, how do you present like options? Because I think sometimes too many options will cause confusion, and confusion will like make no happen. You know what I mean? If there's not like clarity, it can often, and so you probably had to guide them in some, once you kind of saw a path that made most sense for them, maybe guiding them to that solution. But yeah, walk me through a little bit what that would look like, so people can get a better idea of like, what a situation would be with a seller and kind of how you approached it.
Absolutely. So basically, when we get onto a call with a potential seller, we would know what their motivations are, right? Depending on which list that they came from. So if they came from a expired listing, we knew they were expired listings. And if they came from a refinance lead, then we knew that was what they were looking for. But when we called, we never just went straight forward and say, hey, we see that you're an expired listing, right? Like we talked about earlier, how we would open. It was always, hey, this is what we noticed. Right, from our side, is that the case, right? What's going on? And a lot of times we would get new information. So there were sellers from the expired side that would say, yeah, we had our house listed, but this is the reason why, right? So now there's additional motivation to them selling. It's not just, we had this on the market because we needed to move. It's, now that I'm, living in a different state, I'm an absentee owner, right? And I need to get this sold quickly because I need to get into my next home, right? Or this is an inherited property. I just don't want it on my hands anymore. So a lot of times during that first couple minutes of the conversation, if we do a good job of, actually, trying to understand the other party, then they would actually give us more information, and then we would jot that down, right? The CRM note section, right? Make sure we have that information. So it's less about us trying to present on that first call, rather more so me trying to understand more about the seller situation. And then we get into, what does your timeline look like, right? So we want to understand how their timeline looks. Do they want to sell right away? Is this something that they need to get rid of yesterday? Or is this something that they're just kind of, they're okay, right? It's in something that's there. It's a real estate property that they own, but they don't necessarily need to sell it tomorrow, right? They could wait 6 months. They'd rather have a better price, right? Earn, get more money out of it rather than, sell it immediately. So for them, maybe value matters more than speed. So we want to know what matters more to them, right? Speed, value, right? Combination of both, right? Where do we go? What does the timeline look like? And then we get into some of the more just kind of, simple questions, right? What does your property look like? Is there issues on your property, right? Is there anything that we would need to know? right, regarding your property condition, right? Those are just some things that, you just need to know as an investor before going in, or as an agent, right? If you're going in on a listing appointment as well. And then from there, that's pretty much where my job personally would end. That was the first call. And that's something that I've learned, working with this investor, working with this company, with this group, is that a lot of times we, as the professionals, as the experts, quote unquote, either if you're an agent or an investor or a wholesaler, we know the process, right? We've been through it hundreds of times or thousands of times. We've been doing it long enough. But for a seller, that could be the first time they've gone through it. So instead of us dumping all this information, all of this, all of these options onto them immediately, you kind of have to ease people into it, right? You have to ease people into the conversation. You have a first call, which usually shouldn't last, I would say, more than maybe 30 minutes or so, if that. That you're either wasting your time, right, entertaining conversations that are going nowhere, or you're wasting the other person's time or giving them too much information. So first call was like 15, 30 minutes just to get them to the next appointment. So the goal always was, how do we set the next appointment? So at the end of every call, my goal was, let's get you onto another conversation with our, I call it our acquisitions manager, our colleague, our team leader. And from there, we need to set that next appointment so that way they're expecting the next call, and we can have another conversation where more information is shared, or some of the information is repeated, right? Because a lot of times for people who are hearing stuff for the first time, they may hear it over and over again before it registers. And usually we present options, like actual options, when we go into the property, right? That's usually when, if you go into a property, that's where options are actually presented, not so much so over the phone. We might, talk a little bit about it, but in terms of like actual solid options and showing numbers side by side, you want to do this in front of the person in their home, or over a Zoom call, right? If they're an absentee owner, and go from there. So a lot of times my job is just getting that first piece of information, setting that next appointment. And from there, they're able to take it to that next call and the next visit or the next appointment. And that way we're easing people into the conversation. We're easing them into the process, not just dumping, this sequence that we're so familiar with. But for somebody doing this for the first time, it's like, whoa, what's going on, right? You need to take this slow.
That's really good. I mean, that translates well to, just regular, real estate sales as well. Cause there's, people are not doing this every day. So, if they're wanting to sell a house and they've been there for 30 years, so, that's something to really take into consideration as well, as to be a little bit more slow on it, and gather the information first, ask more questions than you're talking. I think that's a great rule in general. So I love it. And I just want to add too, like, I think there's this kind of world, having some sort of inbound lead system, or having, some list that you can process through, and whether that's you or VA or somebody else that is like an inside sales agent, is a really good opportunity for agents. And I think, if you're wanting to get into investing, or if you've done some flips, if you've done some things like that, that's just, you can offer the whole package like you were talking about. It's just really, it's a great thing. I mean, I think the more tools you have, if you have some like cash or whatever, to be able to, if you have equity lines, for example, you can buy properties in cash often. And you can just do a lot of different strategies with it. You can do wholesales, you can do, fix and flips, BRRRRs, all sorts of different things with these properties. And just depending on what the situation is, it's just like having, a tool belt with, a hammer. That's good for some things, but if you're wanting to measure something, it's not going to do well. So it just makes a lot of sense. And I think it could be a whole division in the team, for example. I mean, you could have this be a whole division where you have just kind of like a flipping team or whatever. And that there's, this is more of a market lead. This one needs to go to the market. Let's roll with that to send it to the right person. So really cool. I mean, that's a really good tip, really good strategy for people that could really, expand their business greatly. Let's get into the SEO a little bit. Let's get into like the targeting. So obviously you have been targeting agents, but ultimately you are trying to have Google SEO is mainly Google. Now, are you also optimizing for LLM searches? And this is like, you're basically trying to have keywords related to what somebody thinking about becoming an agent or is an agent would be looking for. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. And with SEO, right, we started this back in 2021. So we started this before, LLMs or
Sure.
AEO, right? GEO was a thing. So when we first started, it was actually, just making sure that you had a website, right? You have to have your own website. We get a lot of questions when I talk about SEO and blogging on, where do you put your blogs, right? A lot of agents ask me, where do you publish your blogs? I'm like, I publish it on my own website. That's the only place actually we put it. And they're like, well, how do you do that? Well, you have to actually go and create a website. And then, people kind of just stop there. But they don't understand the value of having your own website when it comes to building your own brand. And now it's so easy to do it. When we first started, we have to go into WordPress and build everything ourselves. Now you go into WordPress, there's AI tools. Now you can build a website from scratch without WordPress, right? With just pure AI tools. Lovable is a tool that I use a lot personally, but there's all kinds of different AI, they call it vibe coding tools out there. So definitely go look that up, right? And it'll make your life so much easier. But you have to have a website first, and then once you have that, it's a matter of putting out content that you believe that your dream customers, your avatar, your potential clients, anybody who you're trying to target as a lead or a prospect, what are their biggest questions? What are they asking Google? Or now you want to think about, what are they asking ChatGPT? What are they asking Perplexity or Gemini, right, on a daily basis? What questions are they asking, right, on their daily time, right? They're typing into their phone. And then how do you answer those questions? So that would be the first thing I would do, is put together a list of all of the questions that you think your potential customers are typing into either their Google search or their AI search. And then now you have a list of content to create. And every piece of content is you answering that question with what we call an article, right? Or blog article, or you could call it a listicle, right? If it's, what are the top, 10 or top 5 ways those seem to do really well, right? With SEO, especially traditional Google SEO. And then just put together that piece of content, right? And then there's so many tools out there on the internet today, where even if you're building a website through WordPress, they have their own tools, their own plugins that'll literally tell you, hey, here's the things you need to do. Just all you need to do is just put in the keyword or the phrase that you're trying to target for. It'll tell you, hey, here's the 10 things you need to do in this article to make sure that it has the best potential to get recommended the next time somebody searches that, so that your article shows up, your website shows up instead of somebody else's, right? Or yours shows up above the other pieces of content that are out there. So that's the thing that you would need to do, is just go out there, find these tools. They're called SEO optimization plugins or SEO optimization tools or AEO or GEO optimization plugins and tools that are out there today. So that's how you would approach this. And this is exactly what we did. So we started, both my partner and I, we had no experience with website building or SEO. In fact, SEO was always a term that I never really understood what it meant. But when we started doing this, it was like, oh, okay, so this is step 1, this is step 2, and then these are the things we need to do. And I did it. And when we first, put it out there, I was like, like this is gonna work, right? Like just, WordPress told me to do this, and like, that's gonna work. And then we looked it up. Right. When we looked up that same keyword that we targeted for on our own Googles, and it actually showed up on the first page. I was like, wow, it did work. Right. It's real. It was like magic. Right. It actually showed up on the first page of Google. And then we got, when we saw the results, we saw that it worked. We kept doing more and more of it. And then that's kind of where we're at today. But for agents out there, right, if you're, obviously for us, we targeted other agents, but if you are a real estate agent or an investor and you're targeting clients, just think of the questions that your clients will be asking, right? What are they typing in at 12 a.m. and midnight into their search bar because they have a problem that's, irking them that they need to solve? And how do you answer that question for them? And that's how, pretty much in a nutshell, how SEO or AEO and GEO nowadays would work.
Yeah. What's I'm not as familiar with the AEO and GEO. What does that stand for?
Oh, that's just LLM targeting, right? So AEO is AI engine optimization. GEO is just another term for it. Just call it a generative engine optimization. Okay. So you're trying to get your post out there or your website out there when somebody types in that same search, but inside of ChatGPT instead of Google, because now people, they're using ChatGPT as their search engine, or Perplexity or Gemini.
No, totally they are, and it's yeah, that makes a ton of sense. It is really important to have that presence out there. I've had I've heard a few other things, like having having people's perspectives, being part of articles can be helpful. I don't know for I think SEO purposes, like if you're doing a community page, for example, having like a past client or somebody that lives in that community, have that like kind of a first person experience, be part of that community page. I've heard is better. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, like, it's kind of like what you said, like, like you can follow these guys, you can do these things, but until you start searching and seeing it actually come through, it's just kind of theoretical until actually see the proof in the pudding. Did you mention that you had done YouTube as well, or has it been primary website? So yeah, tell me about strategy for putting out good YouTube content that's going to actually do well and not just die in the dungeons of YouTube hell.
Right, exactly. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who've done that, right? Who haven't gotten a lot of traction with YouTube. Now, for us, we primarily focused a lot on websites, right? SEO through our articles. But then later on, it was about, I was like 2-3 years ago, we just realized, we could probably talk about this stuff too. And because YouTube is owned by Google, right? Having a YouTube video linked to your article helps its ranking, right? So having the same keywords or key phrases targeted by a video as well as an article, and then having it link back to each other. So link your video to your article and link your article to your video as well, so that it's cross-linked. Yeah. It does help with your overall ranking. So somebody might find your article by actually trying to find video, and then vice versa as well. And then of course, different people consume content differently. I know people who will never sit down and read an article, so they'll never be able to consume any of our content, and we'll never capture them. But I also know people who will never watch a video. They'll just, always want to read, right, about content as well. So you want to have a dynamic, I will focus on one, either video or written content first, and then get into the other one as you start building, as one of the other, what you started with matures, right? So that's what my suggestion would be. But for YouTube specifically, right, how that will work. Basically, you need to follow SEO guidelines on YouTube as well. You can have the best video out there, but if nobody is able to find your videos, right, based on how are you titling your videos, what are you doing, what are you writing in your descriptions? We see a lot of great videos out there with no description, right? And that's not conducive to ranking. That's not conducive to people finding your videos. You need to have the right description. Of course, there's tagging. So YouTube, there's, every time you upload a video, there's a section we can add about 500 characters worth of tags. That's going to be an important part for what people are searching for and whether or not your videos should show up, right, for those search terms as well. So tagging is an important piece of that as well. And then, of course, the actual content. So the actual content, what you want to do is you want to make it so that, A, it's natural for you. So if you are just not, a natural speaker and you're trying to read everything off a script, it's probably not going to turn out great, right? So basically the way we've done it is myself and my partner, we would actually have more of kind of a conversational back and forth, right? And that worked really well for us, right? It was more natural for us to have that conversation. Sometimes we actually would have slides that we would do a screen share for, because we actually work really well with doing kind of slide presentations. So find what works for you, right? If you're just really good at just sitting in front of the camera and talking for 20 minutes, do that. That's what you are good at. If you're better with conversations, think about starting a podcast, right? Interview styles, right? Those would work better for you. If you are more on, kind of, we talked about doing a presentation, then put together a presentation and record yourself doing it. You can do it on Zoom, right? You can do it on, Loom, which is another one where you can do screen share. Right, and record yourself as well as the presentation at the same time. Yeah. Right. So just find your style of video, and in your video, you want to kind of speak your title as well. So whatever keywords you're targeting for, you want to speak it right at the beginning of your video. And one of the important things when it comes to not just YouTube, but also Google SEO and just really any kind of marketing in general that you're doing as a real estate agent or any business, is you want to make sure that people can actually reach out to you. It's one thing for people to watch your videos and see and find your videos and just say, wow, this is great content. But how do people get in contact with you? We forget a lot of times with all this training and information about, content creation and marketing, that the end goal is to get business, is to get leads. So how are you doing that? How are we making it as easy as possible for somebody to actually talk to you? Right. So we have our call to actions obnoxiously all over our posts. And, for another agent looking at it, it might be like, what are these people doing? But for us, it's worked because we've captured leads that literally told us that they've saw content on another agent's website, right, who were targeting for the same keywords and phrases that we were. Their content might have even been better, or they might have even ranked higher than us. But because they had no obvious way to contact them, that person went to the next article, which was ours, and we had our button right there at the top, big letters over neon colored button, so that way it's obvious. They were able to click on it and book a call with us. So that's how we're able to kind of, capture leads, right?
Sure.
And that's what you need to think about as well. It's like, it's not just about getting your content out there, getting people to see it. It's also about how do we turn these views into business, right? So let's not forget the important piece of that, right? Which I do feel like a lot of agents forget.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I'm doing kind of two different approaches to kind of what you're talking about. So the REI agent platform, we're turning all the past episodes into blogs. And so everybody, this is a good time to plug it. Go to reiagent.com. I don't know if there's any big, bold contact me buttons at the top or anything like that, but we did just refresh that website, and we do have all the blogs, or most of the blogs now are going to be up there. So that's going to be great to, have a different content, have a ton of SEO stuff out there, which is awesome. But then on the real estate side, the sales team side, so we're doing the actual blogs, and the plan is to then come back and do videos for some of them. And I think you didn't say it, but I think if I read between the lines, and I think strategically it makes sense to target the ones that perform the best to start, right? Like, let's say you blog for a year, don't even worry about video, and then you see one that's obviously like outperforming everything else. Try to make a video for it, and do the strategic stuff that you just talked about in the video as well, and you're going to get way more bang for your buck on that video than you would have if you just try to do a video for everything. You're just going to get overwhelmed trying to do everything, right? If you try to video and blog at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great addition, great point as well. Pick always the ones that are performing the best, right? Because those are going to be the ones that are, probably perform the best for your videos as well. And you're adding juice, right, to the ones that are performing already. Because you could have a post out there that maybe you really liked, but Google just never picked it up because it wasn't optimized correctly. So don't do a video for that, because if you do, it wouldn't do anything. Right? Because it's not getting picked up anyway. So just do the ones that are performing the best, that are ranking the highest. If there's a way for you to track, and this gets a little bit more technical, there's a way for you to track where your leads are coming from. So like if you can track which posts your leads are actually clicking that next call to action button, track that, because that's actually going to be probably a better metric than, which posts are ranking higher, right? Because that's a comparative stat. I'm not going to get too deep into that and how that work, but if you can track that, right, find a way to track that, that will be, in my opinion, the best metric to track is where your leads are actually coming from.
Yeah, I think to start, if you don't have a website, build a website. Honestly, I wouldn't, if you're not techie, WordPress is supposed to be more user-friendly, but I probably wouldn't start there even. I'd probably go to like a Squarespace or like a Weebly or something like that, where you can kind of have templates and build off of that. If you're wanting to build it yourself, of course, there's a lot of people that would be happy to take thousands of dollars and build it for you, which is legitimate. I mean, that's there's a lot of value there. But there are some kind of in between do-it-yourself versions. There's the AI versions. Vibe coding is insane. It's just crazy what you can do. It's kind of like maybe an adult nerdy version of like having Legos as a kid, like this unlimited box of Legos where you could build all sorts of different things really easily, is kind of what vibe coding is now. But anyway, yeah, start there and just start. If video feels better for you, you could host it on your website as well. But start with something, and then the more you do it, the more you get better at it. You can add on later to do the other side of the coin, the video or the blog. But just kind of making progress is important. And, if you're doing video, for example, there's some strategic stuff you should think about, like you're talking about with keywords and everything. But I think there's also something to be said about setting yourself up for success by making it easier. And one of the ideas I've had is simply doing a Friday happy hour live stream. that you can then turn into a video, right? So if you had, I mean, you tell me the strategy here, but like, let's say you researched and you found topics that would perform well, keywords. You would want to say those early on in the beginning, and then make sure the title is related to that. Or how do you make sure that that is going to perform well, or give it the best chances to perform well?
Yeah, so you want to definitely make sure that you are saying at least once in your video, right? Preferably at the beginning, just so that it's in there and it's in the transcription, right? That's where that's where it comes in, and
Okay.
it actually helps, right? So that way, the keyword or the key phrase that you're trying to target for is in the transcription of the video, right? So it's in the back end for YouTube, and then yes, you want to have it in your title. Right. So if it's not in your title, it's probably not as searchable. And then also your thumbnail as well. And that's where you can get more creative with it. So your thumbnail, I would actually suggest it having maybe a different variation, not the exact title, rather you're trying to target for, because now you can almost kind of capture attention a different way, because somebody might be searching for something else and then they see your title. Maybe the title doesn't capture their attention, but the thumbnail, which says it a little bit differently, does capture their attention, right? So it could be another way to utilize the real estate, right? The digital real estate that you have to capture more attention. And then you want to have it in your description. So you want to have your keywords that you're trying to target in your description at least once. And then from there, you should be set. And then, of course, in the tags, you can just add it in the tags, or as one of the tags that you have in your video, just straight up. And that would work as well. And then you did mention a great point, making it a little bit easier. If you're doing a happy hour, if you're doing a live event, right? If you're doing an in-person event, any type of training, live stream it, record it, right? So that way you don't have to do it again for a video. Now you're just putting something that you're already doing to a larger audience. Right. I've seen a lot of people have great success with this. So make sure you're doing that. Always think of ways that you can turn one effort into multiple pieces of content.
That's it right there. Because, from a YouTube video, I mean, let's just go down this rabbit hole real quick. So you could take a topic, let's say, first time home buyer strategies in Houston, Texas. Let's do that as the keyword. I'm sure that could be something that, people would be searching, or maybe worded as slightly differently, but that kind of topic. You do a live stream seminar. It's just you in front of your computer. Maybe you have like a slideshow thing prepared beforehand to get through some of the, make sure you have like the key points there, like, the different type of grants that are available, the different type of down payment programs there are, and have all those kind of key things kind of prepared, ready to go. Which honestly, you could do that with AI too. You can make the slideshow really quickly with AI. But anyway, so you're going through this conversation, you're talking to home buyers, and you're giving your great information, the stuff that you probably know off the top of your head pretty easily, with this, a little bit of research, a little bit of prep, and then you finish this thing. And now it's, well, first of all, if you use something like StreamYard, which like I'm on now, I can connect to Facebook and connect to YouTube. I can connect to all these different places, and I can see comments if there are any comments that come in from the different platforms, right? And so you can have like a little bit of interaction. And if you do it at the same time, maybe people will start tuning in, that there could be that possibility. But once you're done, that then lives on your Facebook, that then lives on your YouTube. That's now a video that is just out there, right? So then you talked about the transcript. There are different ways of taking that transcript and then creating a blog from it. I actually was very nerdy and had my computer, I have a Mac and it's through Terminal, and it was downloaded all the different YouTube videos, and it was transcribing them through something called Whisper on my Terminal, and it made my computer sound like it was about to take off and fly to the moon. But it was working. I have like 171 episodes at the time of the recording that are released. So it was working really hard to try to get these episodes. But then from there, you have, transcripts that you can use. And, alone, I had the transcripts at the end of the blog. So like you can click down and then all the whole transcript will be there, which, I don't know how many people are going to read a transcript, but tons of words for SEO stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously you're not trying to get people to read the actual transcript, right, for your content. Although, I guess I have done it now that I think about it. Yeah, some people do it, right? They do actually read the transcript sometimes.
Well, and
But
AI is
yeah,
so crazy that they're like, I don't know why you would do this, but I have Speechify, for example, and so I can take that blog post, I can listen to the blog post on Speechify, which would probably be a summary that's a lot faster than listening to the whole episode. You could also then take the transcript and turn it into a different podcast that they talked back and forth to each other. But then to go past this, then now you have this video, you have this blog potentially, right? And then you can make social media stuff from it as well. You can then share the video, the thumbnail. You can have more content to go. So yeah, you're producing one piece of content, and then it's creating a lot more from there, and that's kind of the beauty of what you're talking about. And yeah, it's the AI tools just make it a lot easier now.
absolutely. And one AI tool out there that I think, I'm sure a lot of agents have already heard of this if they've been doing content is Opus Clip or Opus Pro, whatever its actual term is. But that's where you take one long piece of content and it automatically turns it into multiple short pieces of content. So you don't have to go in and hire somebody to chop your video up. You don't have to do it yourself. And then they're actually going to render it so that way it fits right in the style that it would be, when you're posting on. What that means is if you're doing a video that's like horizontal, right, which is going to be a YouTube video, then they're going to automatically turn that into a vertical video for YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and TikTok as well. That saves a ton of time, and it's a great way to turn, if you're doing content already, long content into short content, so that way you can share that on social media, right, and then point people back to watching the full video if they find it interesting.
Because like YouTube will, I think, link the shorts to the long video then as well, so they can discover you from the shorts or whatever, and then go into the whole video if they're interested. Yeah, no, it's awesome stuff. There's a lot. People just have to kind of come up with a game plan, I think, and have a good strategy and stick with it, because you're not going to see, like, don't get discouraged when you try this great idea out, and then like the first video doesn't do a ton, or like the shorts from it don't like get a ton of attention or whatever. I think you just need to keep trying, right? I mean, just like you're probably not going to hit a home run your first at bat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is for anything, right? If your first video blows up, then congrats, right? But that's really never going to happen. So if for anything that you're doing, whether if it's YouTube, SEO, Instagram, right? If you don't want to do all of this SEO stuff, if you're just focused on Instagram or TikTok, whatever you're doing, just make sure you stick with it long enough to see the results that you're putting in, or see the work that you're putting in generate into results. For us, we actually started our blog, started our website. It was a year until we saw anything come in from our website. Right. And we worked on it consistently for a year with literally no results until the first person reached out to us. And that was like, all right, so this is something that's worth continuing to do. Right. So make sure you're sticking with something long enough. Whatever strategy you choose, if you work it long enough, it will work. Right. And that goes for literally anything, not just socials or online strategies, but also door knocking, cold calling, hosting seminars, right? Whatever you choose, just make sure you stick with it long enough to see the work that you're putting in actually pay off.
100%. I love it. I mean, there's been a lot of golden nuggets in here, Kobe, but what golden nuggets do you have to share with our listeners?
Absolutely, man. So I'm glad you asked that. So number one thing I will say that we didn't talk too much about today in the podcast already is your mindset. Right. I know we literally just kind of alluded to it, but your mindset is so important when you're starting out. And this is in a variety of different ways, right? So how do you talk to yourself as a real estate agent? How do you talk to yourself as an investor, as a business owner, right? Are you talking down to yourself? Are you hard on yourself, right? You want to be, always improving, but you don't want to be talking down on yourself or seeing yourself as lesser than, right? So your mindset is so important when it comes to building out your business. If you don't train yourself, if you're not putting positive information about how you can be successful, how you envision your business looking like 6 months, 12 months, 24 months in the future, then you will never get there, because you can't get somewhere where you don't know where it is, right? If a lot of people talk about What do I need to do? And the first thing that I would try to redirect them on if they're starting on real estate is, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Why did you get into real estate in the first place? Not necessarily just what they want their business to look like, but what do they want their life to look like, right? What does your lifestyle look like? Does it involve a lot of family time? Does it involve a lot of vacations, traveling? Are you living in a specific house? Are you driving a specific car? Right? What do you want your life to look like? And then from there, once you're clear on this, that's how we can work backwards and get to, okay, what do you need to do in your business, right? How much money do you need to earn to get these things, right? What does that look like for you now? Do you need to go out there and grow a team, or can you do this with just your sales, right? With just yourself? And then from there, that's when we figure out daily actions. So it goes from your lifestyle, right? Your lifestyle goals. Then from there, we figure out what that costs, which is going to be your business goals. And then once you have that, we can now start figuring out what your daily actions are to get to those business goals and readjust. So your mindset, very important. And it all starts with knowing what you want, being confident that you have the ability to go out there and get that, because you do, and then being confident in what it is that you are doing, right? The vehicle that you chose to get you to that point as well. So that would be my golden nugget. I know it was a little bit bigger than the nugget you're looking for. But.
No, that's great. Thank you. That was perfect. What about, you mentioned a couple books. Do you have a book that you think is foundational, fundamental, that you think everybody should read, or maybe just one that you currently really like?
Absolutely. So foundational. Think and Grow Rich, right? I know it might be very repetitive for me to say this, but if you haven't read it, read Think and Grow Rich, right? That is the number one book I would recommend. If you have read Think and Grow Rich, I will recommend you to go back and reread it again, right? Because you're going to pick up more information from it the second time. And then if you've read it already more than once, then I suggest, or I challenge you to read it once every quarter, every year. So once every 3 months. So that way you're really getting that information into your head, and then you're really able to really become part of that information as well. So that's the foundational book that I recommend. And another book that I will probably bring up as well is one called Psycho-Cybernetics. So Psycho-Cybernetics, I'm not going to spell it out here, but you can figure out how to go out there and spell it. But it's by a man by the name of Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And basically, to kind of give everybody an idea what this book is, it's everything that you're going to learn in Think and Grow Rich, but it's much more scientific. It's something that actually explains the reasoning and the functioning behind why mindset works. So if you don't really, mess around with all the kind of the woo-woo personal development stuff, you're more kind of direct and data-based, then read Psycho-Cybernetics. That's going to really help you understand why all this mindset stuff works.
That one rings a bell, and I don't remember if I've read it or if I looked into it at one point. Is that an older book as well? I know Think and Grow Rich is pretty old, but is that also kind of an older book?
Yeah, I would say so. It's definitely an older book. Now it's been updated a few times. So when you read it, you're going to get some newer stories as well. But yeah, I think when it first came out, it was definitely an older book. It's a white cover with red letters on it.
Okay. I was just trying to jog my memory on it, but cool. Thank you. Those are great recommendations. Kobe, then finally, is there a place that people can find you if they want to follow you on social media? You mentioned a website, you mentioned YouTube. What's the best place to find Kobe?
Absolutely, man. Thanks for that. So I am very quite active on Instagram, so you can look me up. Just my name, Kobe Zen _ that's my Instagram handle. Or you guys can actually find me on LinkedIn as well. I've been doing a lot more on LinkedIn. So you can look up my name, Kobe Zen, on LinkedIn. Those are probably the best two social media places to find me. Facebook too, I'm on there, but Facebook is Facebook, right? There's just, you might get lost in the shuffle. But our website is agentwealthhustle.com. So if you want to look us up, you want to study how we've done SEO, go to agentwealthhustle.com. And then that's where you'll be able to find us. And then our YouTube channel is going to be called Agent Wealth Hustle as well. And that's where you're going to be able to find how we've done some of our videos. You might want to copy some of the styling that we've did. All of that is out there public. So those are going to be the best places to find me.
Awesome. Well, Kobe, thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the REI Agent.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe to catch new shows every week.
Visit reiagent.com for more content.
Until next time, keep building the life you want.
All content in this show is not investment advice or mental health therapy. It is intended for entertainment purposes only.